We'll see who's on the play here, and it will be Way. He'll start off with a Temple of Abandon, or he thought he was on the play. Nice try there, Matthew, as Berni is going to sacrifice his wooded foothills, get himself a forest, and now we're under. Ugh.
No, I can get no, those forests are fine.
Why?
I think that might be Portal 3 Kingdoms. I'm not positive. If so, that's pretty classy.
All right, if it's Portal 3 Kingdoms, I changed my opinion.
I don't know for sure.
What do I even have you here for, then?
My insightful commentary on things not related to artworks on basic lands, I guess.
All right, good answer. Here's a temple. We'll see where this card's going to go.
I think the logo is either of that of Portal 3 Kingdoms or 7th edition.
Ooh, you got lucky.
I got lucky?
You got lucky. That's not a 7.
Yep, it's all luck. Right again. Just running so hot.
Robert will draw a copy of Crater's Claws and play a Temple of Abandon. A little scry action here. Top card goes to the bottom. The follow-up is the Sylvan Caryatid. Mana Acceleration, he's got plenty of that.
The question is, does he have any sort of payoff for all of this? And I don't think he does currently. He does have a Crater's Claws, but not just a creature to put into play.
Another Temple of Abandon here for Matt. He's off to a really, really slow start for his deck. His deck can be much more aggressive than this. Berni draws another copy of Sylvan Caryatid.
Oh, this is a really aggressive curve here. Elvish Mystic facilitating things like very fast Rebel Masters, Boon Satyrs, Yusova, as we mentioned before, Heir of the Wilds, but none of that just yet.
Eidolon of Blossoms will come down. That'll cantrip. Drew Berni a copy of Polukranos, so there's a payoff card. Elvish Mystic comes in the red zone. That'll do it for Robert as we head over to Way. Mana Confluence. And now a Flamewake Phoenix. A card we don't see a ton of, but it's coming to the red zone now.
Both Flamewake Phoenix and Ashcloud Phoenix present in this deck.
Phoenix Tribal.
Phoenix Tribal strategy.
Now, we've had some cards break out a little bit here this week, and Shaman the Great Hunt has been impressive so far. I don't know when, but soon enough, this card's going to see more play.
I don't think there's, a lot of decks are very susceptible to flyers right now. I think this card has a potential to find a home in a variety of beatdown decks, both teamer strategies and mono red aggro.
You saw the attack there from the Eidolon and the Elvish Mystic. The follow-up is Polukranos and a Temple of Abandon. Top card goes to the bottom. That'll be Berni's turn, using all of his mana, all of his resources every turn. Heir of the Wild to the draw.
And as we know, these red-green decks, not very good at handling large things that slip through the cracks. Green Devotion brings a lot of that to the table, and Polukranos is not a card you see very much of anymore, but is very problematic for a deck like red-green.
Temple of Abandon. After the attack with the Flamewake Phoenix, it's 15-15 for both players here. Funny that they're both on the same color combination, but they are doing very different things.
Yeah. And Robert on the play with the mana acceleration, he got to the board first, and his deck is so much more powerful once it has its mana set up, particularly with Matt not doing anything for the first couple turns.
There's Heir of the Wilds. That'll be a roadblock there for Berni to have to get through, though he does have a Crater's Claws that he can use. The question, of course, is does he want to use Crater's Claws on that? We'd prefer to actually use that as a fireball that goes upstairs.
Well, the Heir of the Wilds is a little bit awkward right now for Robert's side of the board. I think it's worth killing. You don't really want to use the Polukranos to kill it, because then they fight, and your Polukranos is dead. So yeah, it doesn't look great to use a Crater's Claws, but I think it's a fine use of resources.
Well, Berni's going to go to the tank here. Figure out the best use of things. He's having a bunch of mana now. Looks like he's considering Crater's Claws at this point.
Yeah, I think the question is, how much does he actually want to pay here?
Yeah.
Does he want to play around something like Gather Courage?
Because it's pretty easy just to say, yeah, you just cast it for a single red because he has Ferocious. But as you mentioned, Gather Courage is actually a card that you have to work your way into the equation once you realize, Aaron Barrett is here, for example.
Yeah.
It's not a card that you would think of otherwise, but as a result, it's a card that could be on the radar here.
And if Robert were to cast the Critter's Claws for not enough, his whole turn goes down the toilet. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to attack with the Pelucranos. He can probably only attack with Eidolon, and you're allowing Matt, who's behind the whole game, to maybe get to untap and do something productive.
Yep.
So it looks a little silly to have Robert sit there and think, but there are considerations. He does not want that Critter's Claws to fail to resolve.
One thing we know that Matt has to do is keep attacking. Because, well,
That's
you have
mandatory.
You got to do that. So 2 damage is going to come across in the air.
The problem is, can he play anything that can survive Pelucranos fighting?
Oh, this sort of fits the bill.
Yeah. It does turn into a morph.
This is a very quick activation of Pelucranos, I believe. Berni wants to take a look at Ashcall Phoenix, see exactly what happens here. If it dies, turns into a morph.
And the problem is he's forced to chump block here with the morph.
Yep.
Because the Pelucranos is lethal, and this is not enough damage to kill Pelucranos.
Yeah, so that turns face down. There's the block. As you mentioned, he is forced to block the Pelucranos. So Ashcall Phoenix is going to go to the bin. That'll probably just be Berni's turn. I'd say it was a bad one. Did what he needed to do. Pretty straightforward stuff there. Whale draw, copy of Crater's Claws. Or Crater's Claws than I expected this weekend, too.
Yeah, a lot of the copies of that card. I don't know. It's not inconceivable for Matt to at least play for a couple more turns. I think his hand might be just too choked with 5-mana cards.
Yeah,
But if he had-
two Storm Breaths in hand.
If he had a couple cheap chump blockers, he could play on for a little bit.
Yeah.
He's, in fact, not that far away from killing Robert, but I don't think he can quite put it together here.
There's a Mystic. He's got to go down to 2 now. There's Jasova. Pass the turn back. Berni draws a Forest. Yeah, what really is, I think, the hiccup in the whole thing is the Mana Confluence that's over there.
Yeah, and now Matt has to double chump block again. He can't even allow the Eidolon to get through.
Yeah. So Yasova will probably jump in front of the Eidolon, and then the Hellish Mystic will jump in front of Pelucranos. He goes down to 1, and you're effectively Stone Raining him at that point, because then the Mana Confluence can't tap for mana. So here comes Berni with everything. There are the predictable blocks. Some creatures will trade. The dust will settle. Whale will be down to 1. And there's okay. A copy of Genesis Hydra. This is for 6. Eidolon among the cards. So there that is.
A little weird for Robert to not do that before combat because Matt's blocks are face up on the table anyway. And, this way, for example, he misses out on an Eidolon trigger.
Yeah. I'm seeing if there's anything he could reveal that has haste.
There's no
as
Xenagos in the main
No
deck.
Xenagos in the main deck. So Eidolon may have been the best card he could have found to give him a reason to play pre-combat, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, Matt's blocks are completely forced.
Yeah.
I guess there's the argument that Matt might just concede when you attack, even though he's not technically dead. And you don't want to show him Genesis Hydra, but small potatoes either way, as Robert had a commanding advantage.
He does win game number 1, does Robert Berni. Up a game here over Matt Way. Green-Red Devotion up a game over Red-Green Aggro. We turn our attention to the sideboard, and we will start with Way in his Red-Green Aggro deck. What are the 15 he's got?
An Arc Lightning, 2 copies of Sarkin, 2 copies of Nissa, a Chandra, 3 copies of Wild Slash, 2 Destructive Revelries, 2 Barrage of Bolters, a Bat to Nature, and a Fated Conflagration. I like the 3 copies of Wild Slash, the 1 copy of Fated Conflagration, and the 2 copies of Sarkin. I like those cards a lot in this matchup. Robert's deck's a little soft in the air, and Sarkin has a lot of juicy things it can kill as well.
Other side of things for Berni with his Green-Red Devotion strategy. 3 Nissa Worldwaker, 3 Nylea's Disciple, 2 Reclamation Sage, 2 Cetessan Tactics, 2 Arbor Colossus, a Xenagos God of Revels, and then 2 more copies of Genesis Hydra. He has 2 in his main deck. I think he just wants to go super big and not die. So Nylea's Disciple, I think, checks off both those boxes.
Arbor Colossus as well is just so big and locks up any Stormbred Dragons or Phoenixes that Matt may be bringing to the table here. I think the 2 copies of Success and Tactics may be okay as well if Robert's plan is to go super big.
Well, those are the options for both players, and game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment. We talked briefly about our invitational qualifier circuit that we do have. Of course, at our Open Series events, we have Modern Premier IQ, Standard Premier IQ, Legacy Premier IQ, depending on what our main event will be. But you can have IQs at your local store too, and there's a bunch of stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah, you can go over to Star City Games and get signed up on the website or contact one of our organized play representatives, but we have all sorts of tiers of IQs all the way up to the Premier IQs, which feature $5,000 in cash prizes. Lots of invites to the Invitationals, very popular here, both at the Open Series and at local stores around the country. All these kits come with exclusive playmats, dice bags, pins, and SCG premium vouchers, either for participation or for top 8 prizes.
We've got supers, we've got elites, we've got moderns, we've just got regular ones as well. But if you want IQs in the local store, it's not hard to get set up. StarCityGames.com for more information. It's what helped many players who played in the Players' Championship last year actually qualify for the tournament.
Oh, it's a huge part of the grind. The easiest way to do it, of course, spiking an invitational. Easiest, I mean, least amount of work, not the easiest as in terms of difficulty.
Absolutely.
But for a lot of the other players, the Jim Davises of the world, Logan Mize, Stephen Mann, a huge part of their qualification was doing work, their local IQ scene.
Game number 2 going to be underway here in just a moment. Robert Berni, Grand Prix Phoenix champion. Off to a nice start here. He is 5-0. We saw on our leaderboard as well, Joe Lissette, Danny Jessup, also 5-0. Those are our big names of the tournament right now that are undefeated here in Houston. Good start for these guys. I imagine we'll see them not only today, but tomorrow as well.
I mean, a win here for any of our XOs at this point almost locks up a berth into day 2.
Yeah.
X3 has typically been the record so far. We're still in the 2015 Open Series infancy, so we're still figuring out what records are needed at various attendance levels. But Houston on the smaller side, so if anything, the record should be a little bit more forgiving.
Devotion starting to pick up a little bit now. You know, it's not something that we saw a lot of. You know, I think of decks like Mono Blue and Mono Black Devotion, but those decks are gone. Things have changed. Green Devotion can still be something that people are doing. We saw Tana Grace a little bit earlier. Brennan DeCandio in the Florida area kind of giving away Devotion deck that players have been having success with, and now we see Bernie here at 5-0. I'm not entirely sure what made players want to go back to this, but it seems like it's pretty well positioned.
Well, I think that there is an absence of sweepers in the format. There is some end hostilities, there is some Crux of Fate floating around, but it's not like there's a saturation of those kind of effects. And for decks that lack, you know, a density of really redundant removal, the Green Devotion strategies are very powerful.
Temple of Abandon is where Matt will start. Top card will stay on top. Bernie with a Forest and an Elvish Mystic. This is an Elvish Mystic on the other side. There's a Wooded Foothills in the passing of the turn. Bernie will take a draw step. Picked up a copy of Ugin. We're a little ways away from that one.
Good if he gets there, but that's a big if.
There's Sylvan Carry at it and simply passing the turn back. Will Bernie over to Way. Whale draw. Third turn of the game. Manic Influence, an option as far as lands are concerned. He'll deploy that. Does have a Stormred Dragon, also a copy of Creator's Clause in hand. But he'll just simply pass the turn back. For an aggro deck, he has not been very aggressive.
We have not seen the draw yet. You know, we haven't seen him open on a Mana Accelerator or have a 2-mana play on turn 2. His draws have not been smooth, nor have they been packing a lot of removal. And Robert's quickly getting to the point where he's going to be able to do some really impressive stuff with Nykthos and his mana creatures.
Now, Robert's hand isn't all that impressive either. He's got 2 copies of Ugin. Now he's getting closer to that, but is Ugin the kind of card that can dominate once it's in play in this matchup? I suppose we may end up finding out.
Well, there's a lot of haste in the red-green aggro list, and that's a pretty good recipe for fighting Ugin. If it requires Robert to tap out, Ugin's exposed, and then something like Stormbreath Dragon, Shaman of the Great Hunt might be able to finish it off. Flamewake Phoenix as well.
Boon Satyr on the end step. Whale draw. I believe that's a copy of Arc Lightning,
Ugh.
which is
Hello.
pretty filthy right now. I would be hard-pressed not to cast this one. 1 there, 2 there. That's done resolving. That was brutal.
Tough turn for Robert.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really far away now from getting to Ugin. His devotion count is very low. He lost 2 mana creatures.
There's a forest. There's a Crater's Claws. That'll take care of Boon Satyr. Those Crater Claws will have to be used removal to buy some time here. Sometimes they can be a game winner. I don't think they'll be doing that this game, though. Chandra the draw. Chandra will be deployed. Matt will have to take 1 to cast it thanks to the mana confluence that's in play.
Legacy Challenge players, your pairings for round
Elevator
1
going
noted
up.
on the R to S pairings board on blue paper.
Going back to
Legacy
Berni.
Challenge players, that is on
Temple
blue
of Abandon.
paper. Your pairings for
Coming
round
in.
1 are up.
Take a look at the
Please
top
make
card.
your way to your seats.
Curious to see if Robert wants to use a Crater's Claws here as a removal spell on the Mystic with Matt not really doing very much. Sort of implies his hand needs more mana.
Looks like the answer is no. Looking to save Crater's Claws for something a little bit better. I'm out in the draw here for Way. Push the 0 button on the Chandra. There's a forest. Oh, that'll come into play. Perhaps we go to the skies.
Looks like it. Sarkhan, Stormbreath Dragon, something of that sort.
Yeah, we'll do a dragon. And for 4 comes Stormbreath. Berni will draw. Another copy of Crater's Claws. Well, you have to imagine he's going to be casting 1 this turn. So Stormbreath Dragon's going to have to leave. These are exchanges, however, that are not that favorable for Robert.
No, they are not. Actually, I guess Crater's Claws is something that he needs to keep in just as more removal. It seems not that well suited for this matchup here. And he's drawn a bunch of them, and they have not been impressive.
Yeah. Crater's Claws is the card revealed for Chandra. But this is just another Stormbreath Dragon. Gonna keep putting Berni to the test as here's another attack for 4 in the air.
I actually think that turn I would have gone ahead and just Crater's Claws Robert for all my mana. Because next turn you have access to Chandra plus the Stormbreath Dragon left over in your hand, and that's probably enough to get it done.
2 are going up as we speak. That's 2 giant players. Your pairings on green.
Berni thought about using his Crater's Claws to kill Stormbreath Dragon pretty quickly, but he's reassessing the situation now.
I understand that the Stormbreath Dragon right now in play is better than having just Crater's Claws Robert for some damage, but you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. So
Oh, so that is true.
it is actually true.
Oh, okay.
So I think I would have just gone upstairs for the full amount, left the Chandra and Stormbreath as leftovers to finish up the game.
Well, Berni, this is some serious thought here. 2 Ugins in hand, Crater's Claws, and a mystery card. Seems like he doesn't really want to cast Crater's Claws here, but I think he's just coming to the conclusion that I kind of have to. So there that is. Pass the turn back. Whale draw. Flamewake Phoenix. He can keep the pressure on. There's the 0 button, Boon Satyr. You see him set it aside, much like he did with the Crater's Claws. Looks like he doesn't have a ton of interest in casting it.
Well, he can cast both the Flamewake Phoenix and the Boon Sayer this turn. It's not shabby.
There's a Phoenix. In for 2. And now there's Boon Satyr. So there you go. 2 3-drops. Ferocious turned on. Not too bad. Berni draw, copy of Courser of Crewfix.
I don't think that's going to help him against the Crater's Claws that is waiting in Matt's hand.
Take a look at the top card here. Sylvan Caryatid. Berni's cards did not come in the right order this game. Back-to-back Ugins as his draw steps early.
Yeah, not great.
Do we like Ugin in the matchup?
I think it's okay. It is really, really hard for Matt to win if it gets into play.
It sure is expensive, though. Of course, he's not allowed to block thanks to Chandra. There's Kratos Claws. And we are going to head to a third game here as Matt Way wins game number 2 here over Robert Berni. Red-green aggro and green-red devotion. We'll play a third one as both these players sitting at 5-0.
Matt just trying to be careful there. Doesn't want to just cast the Kratos Claws for lethal and have something weird happen. So go through combat, see what happens, and finish him off after the fact.
Oh, I think that's smart. No reason to get ahead of yourself if you don't have to. I think that is smart. 2 red-green decks, but just 2 decks that are trying to do completely different things. We saw in Matt's deck, copy of Yasova, a card that we haven't seen a ton of. You think there's any chance that picks up?
Yes. I think that card's very powerful. It actually lends itself, I think, better to red-green aggro than a couple of other lists because it's so powerful alongside pump spells and pump effects. Because the way that it is right now, like you can't take Siege Rhino with it, for example, because it has to be power less than Yasova. So with some pump effects, I don't know exactly where you want to go, but your Gather Courages, your Titan Strengths, whatever, that card could be really, really impressive.
Well, a place that you can play it is in Commander, the traditional format, or heck, even Tiny Leader is a format that's certainly picking up. And to find out more about Commander, I know exactly where you should go.
Yeah, Benny Smith, who's been a staple of the Commander community and casual play in general since very early on in Magic's history, has written the Complete Commander Guide, now available for a 2014 update on PDF. StarCityGames.com/Complete Commander to order your copy today.
You have to imagine there will be more updates to the Complete Commander, and heck, I don't know if Benny's got anything about Tiny Leaders in the works, but it wouldn't surprise me. That format is getting mega popular.
It's sort of, it's like EDH for spikes. It's Commander for spikes.
It's Commander for us.
Yeah, potentially.
And you and your Stone
Rain,
Yeah.
Ice Storm, Molten Rain, Sinkhole, Raise.
So what's the name for the person who likes land destruction that's a spike? Because like we have, Timmy, Johnny, and Spike, but they're their own class of person.
A Spikeopath.
Okay.
It's a certain level of spike that has no empathy for other people. It's like a ratcheted up spike.
Spikeopath is nice.
Yeah. It's a Spikeopath.
Just the bad guy at the local store.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at my local store and I was watching this guy that I knew play against someone who was very new to Magic. And of course, the Spikeopath at our local store dusts off Legacy Dredge to play pickup games against this guy who owns basically a starter deck. So the guy, the new player, has Mana Leak or some counter spell in his hand. And the Dredge guys, dredging over his graveyard, putting stuff to play. And the new player keeps on trying to stop him and counter Golgari Grave Troll or Narcomoeba or Icarid, and the guy keeps playing to him like, you don't understand, these aren't spells. These aren't spells. They're triggered abilities coming from my graveyard, or they're replacements on my draw step. And eventually the relatively new player just kind of picked up his stuff and left without saying anything. It's like, what kind of person do you have to be? I'm sorry if you're listening out there. What kind of person do you have to be to have a new player show up at the store owning, a starter deck plus maybe whatever 2 or 3 boosters they have and said, so what Dredge is like?
It's fun. This is a fun deck to play against.
Yep. I saw an old colleague of mine, former member of Wizards R&D, Matt Place, was telling me he was at an event once where Richard Garfield was gunslinging, the creator of Magic. It's just someone that if you love Magic, you should have nothing but reverence for.
God's gift.
Yes. It created so many great memories and opportunities for all of us. And he's playing a gunslinging game against some guy who has Richard Garfield Crucible of Worlds strip mine locked. It's like, what is your problem? Take a step back, right? Take a step back and think about what you're doing right now.
Look, for some people, that's their idea of fun.
Yeah.
Blow you up. I love casting Tangle Wire. I like it so that people don't get to do anything.
I don't know.
Winter Orb.
I'd really like to see what kind of deck Richard built, but I guess I don't get to know because I'm not going to let him have a second land.
Doesn't get to play.
Doesn't get to play.
It's too bad.
What is your problem?
It's tough to watch. And you're the one advocating this for Tiny Leaders. This is what you want to do to people.
Well, no, it amuses me, but I wouldn't actually go ahead and do this. Seems like also in the format where you have to play 3 or less, land destruction is probably not that potent.
That's what you say. I don't know, land destruction could be good. I could be into it. I would just play an all pyroclasm deck.
Yeah, that's pretty good too. Threads of Disloyalty
Yeah.
is probably pretty
What
sweet.
do you got over there?
Legacy's Allure. Oh, that's it. I'll build the Stone Rain deck and the Control Magic deck.
Broke it.
Yep.
It's lights out on that format.
Sorry, ruined another casual format.
There's a Sylvan Carry added off a 4-0 Nykthos here for Berni as game number 3 is underway. Wooded Foothills is sacrificed here by Matt. See if a forest or a mountain's coming. There is a forest. Let's see if he can actually finally get off to an aggressive start. I mean, this is a better start than what he's had in either game.
This is the best thing he's done. I mean, game 1 he did close to nothing. Game 2, he had a turn 2 Elvish Mystic and then started doing things on the third turn, but has a substantial board presence on the second turn for the first time.
There's a forest off of the Wooded Foothills there for Berni. And I have to imagine we got a 4-mana spell coming a little ahead of schedule. Oh, a couple of these. Well, this could lead to a very terrifying turn.
Yep. And Robert is protected from Arc Lightning. Only kills one thing. As opposed to last game where Arc Lightning was probably what ultimately killed Robert.
Wooded Foothills number 2 there for Matt. He goes down to 18. He'll get a land out of his deck. Gonna go with a mountain. We'll see what his play will be on turn 3, but he has to know that things are very scary right now. 2 Voyaging Satyrs and a Nykthos in play. We have seen what these devotion decks are capable of. It can be very scary.
It's almost at the stage where Matt can't even hope to contain Robert's mana, so he's just got to hope that Robert has no action left over in his hand.
There's Flamewake Phoenix here, the attacks. Berni very quickly going to take the 4 points of damage and move forward. He'll take a draw step. Copy of Pelucranos. That's something to do. Now, right now, Nykthos isn't generating an extra mana.
No, mana neutral.
But soon enough, it will be. And this might be another setup turn here for Berni before he goes absolutely crazy.
Though the problem is if his big payoff here is Ugin, which I believe that it is, it's possible that he plays Ugin, minuses, loses a good percentage of his own board as well, and then he's at the mercy of Matt's leftovers. Ugin plus a sea of cheap mana accelerators. I've seen this deck a couple times now. It has moments of being very powerful, but the minus power on Ugin is a little uncomfortable at times.
Well, he's going to go with Whisperwood Elemental.
That's a fine play.
Not bad at all. Here comes an attack for 1. Got to make sure you get your points in. Here's a trigger, Manifest. Creature coming in. Could be anything. And pass the turn back.
Another card that's having a bit of a breakout this weekend, we've seen quite a bit of it, has been very impressive in this Green Devotion list.
I think it's taken players a little bit of time just to have the opportunity to play with it and see that, okay, this thing's really good.
Yeah,
A hard card to assess on the surface.
for sure.
And apparently unbeatable and limited.
Oh, I believe it.
Arc Lightning was the draw. See Destructive Revelry in hand here too. Looks like Matt has brought some of the wrong tools to this particular fight this game.
Well, the cheap removal was really good in the second game that we saw.
Yeah.
But Robert was on the play, a lot more mana acceleration, and now it's a lot tougher.
Looks like Arc Lightning is going to go after the Manifest creature, which is a Courser of Crewfix.
Well, Robert would have really liked to keep that one.
So good choice there by Matt. He's going to get in for 4 points of damage yet again.
You can see, Robert, I mean, this is a little uncomfortable, right? Like, going to 10 in this spot. You still don't have an answer on the table to the flyer. Ugin is a little awkward. You can't cast it just yet. I suppose next turn he has access to it through his Nykthos.
Taking sign-ups right now. Feel free to come over to the side of the stage and sign up.
He's willing to take another shot here. He's going to go down to 10.
Challenge, we are currently taking sign-ups.
Berni will draw. Temple of Abandon.
So this is the turn he gets to go crazy with mana.
So Nykthos is going to make 5 green. We think. This is the math part of the deck. We saw Tan and Grace have to go through this when we watched him play. Bernie's going to have to do the same. How much mana can I make, and what do I want to do with it? So there's 5. -2 is 3. +5 is 8. -2 is 6. +5 is 11. 11 minus 4 is 7. So 7 green mana floating.
And I feel like if Robert's going to do this in lieu of playing Ugin, he has to fight the Phoenix. He can't risk taking any more damage in the air.
Yep. I'm inclined to agree.
And between his Caryatid that's available to chump block, the Manifest token he's about to get, he can afford to chump block the Heir of the Wilds if it comes to it.
There goes that. There's a Temple. Top card. Becomes the bottom card. Caryatid with the mana left over. Here's the attack. 4 damage will come across. Trigger Manifest. Top card becomes a 2/2. And that's called using all of your mana.
Perfect. And that's funny too, because that's almost like a setup turn for the next turn, even though that was an insane turn.
Yeah, the fact that that is the setup turn for the next turn is terrifying. There's another copy of Heir of the Wilds. That can't keep up on this board. Not right now. Berni will draw a card. Another Temple. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's Xaxes. Berni gotta make sure he knows what his morph is, but his morph's probably not better than that card. There is Big Papa Dragon Ugin. See how Berni wants to use this weapon.
And he can just minus it for 2. It allows him to keep Whisperwood Elemental, Polukranos, and his Manifest token. And have a fairly commanding board presence against a red-green deck.
One could argue,
Yep.
as Robert Berni is going to win this game and match over Matt Wade. 2-1. Green-red devotion will take care of red-green aggro. And Berni is now 6-0.
Yep, you can see this kind of matchup is very biased